How's it going? Welcome to my review of the Holt Bladeworks Haptic. So let's get into it. When you purchase this knife, it comes in this fancy cardboard box with a little magnetic closing piece on it. Very nice. And it also comes with a bunch of goodies. So this is a NFC ID chip. So you can zap this with your phone and it will tell you which model of knife you have, what the serial number is, the blade steel, all the different details of it. So very cool and helps prevent fraud or, clones. And see, we got some stickers. We got this is the little hex key for your detent. It has adjustable detent, which we will see later once we tear it all apart. And business card, little support website or email, which we'll also talk about later. And then, of course, the awesome stickers. So when I buy an $800-900 knife, if I don't get at least $2 worth of stickers, I get violently angry. So super happy they threw those in. So this is Holt Bladeworks. Holt Bladeworks is a husband and wife team, Joe and Angie Holt. They're out of Iowa, and they CNC most of their make knives on their CNC machine. I believe they have a Tormach 1100, and this is their second knife. Their first knife was the Spectre, which was a larger knife with a spear point, and it went through 4 different variations. Started, I believe, as a frame lock and then ended up as a liner lock in the final iteration, and now they're no longer making the Spectres. I would love to pick up a Spectre, but they are very expensive and hard to find on the secondary market. But they've dedicated all their time now to this model, the Haptic. So let's go through some quick specs and get that knocked out of the way. So these are my measurements taken with my calipers. So I think they line up pretty well with the specs on their website. But overall blade length, we have 3 1/4 inches. And the sharpened length is 3.2 inches, so almost full length of the blade. Blade stock is 1.3. So keep in mind, or 0.13, keep in mind 0.125 is 1/8 of an inch, so this is just over 1/8 of an inch blade stock. And the thickness behind the edge, measured about right there, is 15 thousandths. So it is very thin behind the edge, very slicey blade. The handle length, boom to boom, is 4.175, so just over 4 inches. The height, measured at the widest point right here, is 0.575, so just over 1/2 inch, and then the width is 0.465, measured between the scales in the middle, not including the clip, so just under 1/2 inch. And then the scale thickness or stock thickness on the titanium scales is 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch each. So overall length ends up coming out to 7.43, so just under 7.5 inches, and the overall height is 1.15, so measured right across here, so a little over 1 inch wide. And the weight is 3.7 ounces, so under that magic 4-ounce mark. There we go. Bada bing. So there we go. And we'll roll in some different knives and do some size comparisons here real quick, and then we'll get back and dive a little deeper. All right, let's do some size comparisons for the Holt Bladeworks Haptic. So start off with a Rat Model 2. It's actually very comparable in size to the Rat Model 2, and the camera is going as straight down as I could get it, so hopefully it actually shows pretty close to the actual length here. So Rat Model 1, considerably larger. Okay, and of course the Spyderco Delica, the DLT Trading exclusive with the 20 CV blade. So my Valentine's knife, very similar to a Delica, right in the same size range. And then let's do a little bit more high-end knives. So the godfather of all folding knives. This is the small Sebenza 21. Bam. So really close to the size of the small Sebenza, slightly wider, obviously, but otherwise pretty close. and a large Sabenzo, which is going to be considerably bigger. So there you go. And then final one, simply because we'll bring this in later to talk about it as a comparison as well. This will be the Drop Ferrum Forge designed crux. You can see it's very considerable, or very close in size to the crux. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into this knife, starting with the blade steel and the grind. So blade steel is Böhler M390 out of Austria. So this is a high-end knife steel, considered a super steel. Most high-end knives now come with either M390 or Crucible's CPM 20CV, both of which for all intents and purposes are the same. M390 is just made by Böhler out of Austria, whereas 20CV is made by Crucible out of the US. It is heat treated to 61 Rockwell with a cryo treatment, and I heard that they use Peter's Heat Treat out of Pennsylvania to heat treat all their blades. And Peter's Heat Treat is known in the industry as one of the best, if not the best, heat treating facilities in the country. A lot of custom knife makers and high-end knife companies use them to heat treat their knives, so you can trust that this is heat treated properly and basically is close to perfection in the heat treat as you can get. So this is a Wharncliffe style blade with a hollow grind, and mine has a stonewash finish, which I prefer. It shows fingerprints less, and I use my knives. I don't have any safe queens. If I'm not using it, I usually sell it to try and pick up another knife. But mine's a stonewash. They offer them in a satin, I believe, and also a near mirror polish. But the near mirror ups the price a little bit. So the handle material is 6.4 titanium, and this is a liner lock, and it locks up very early, very solidly. There's no blade play, left, right, up, down, as you would expect on, again, a knife at this price point. The action on this is amazing, possibly the best action I think I've ever felt. So the flipper tab is well sized. It's not too big, not too small. A little bit of jimping on it, grips your finger well, but it's not sharp, doesn't hurt your finger. Also, you can see the M390 only on the blade right there, but no branding on the blade anywhere else. I love that. I like a naked blade. I don't like billboarding all over the blades. So, but action is amazing, and like I said, I think it's the best action I've ever felt. It's especially impressive in this knife because it's a lot smaller. So is it better than Grimsmo Norseman? It's hard to say because the blade's so much smaller. It's easily as good as the Norseman action. So, which is, like I said, much more impressive because this is a smaller, lighter knife. A lot of times a heavier knife will snap out and fall shut a lot easier because of the extra weight. So, but on a smaller knife like this, getting it to fly out like that and then this beautiful fall shut is much more difficult. So, fit in the hand. This is what I would consider a 3-finger knife. I have extra large or double XL hands, so larger than average hands probably. If I am holding this straight on, I can get all 4 fingers on it, but if I'm holding it as you would normally hold a knife to open packages, open more knives, my pinky finger definitely floats off here, and I can only get a 3-finger grip on here. So part of that is compounded because this handle actually curves away from your finger at the end. Most knives, like the crux I'll bring in as an example, the handle at the end will actually curve into your fingers, which allows more purchase. When it curves away, you see on the crux, when it curves in, your finger grabs onto it. Even if you're only getting the very end, you still have some purchase from your pinky. When it curves away like this, even though these handles are almost identical in size, this one is a 4-finger knife. Even not using not choking up, just using the handle, this is still a 4-finger knife, whereas this is a 3-finger knife. So effectively, having the handle curve away like that eliminates about this much of the handle. So really the handle is actually this long on what was already a pretty small handle. So let's take a look at the pocket clip. This is a milled titanium pocket clip, so carries pretty deep, and I've had no issues with the pocket clip. It's designed very well, grips well. I don't generally like milled pocket clips all that much, but this one and the one on the Norseman are the best examples of milled pocket clips that I have seen. So it carries very well. So let's go through. Oh, no lanyard hole. No great loss in my mind. I'm not a lanyard guy. I know there's a couple people out there that are probably pissed, but I'm guessing there's not all that many people that would put a, 25-cent piece of material on their super high-end expensive knife. But to each his own. Either way, no lanyard hole on this one. If you wanted one, tough. It is tip-up right-hand carry only, not movable, which with me is fine. Again, if you're a lefty, you might have to try and see if they'll end up making some left-handed versions, or, but either way, it's designed for right-handed use only. Take a look at this milling on this backspacer, titanium backspacer. See how they carry the milling from the backspacer into the handle scales? So just crazy attention to detail. Very beautiful. And also, look at these lines. See the angle on this line carried in to the design on the pocket clip. It's on this side as well. And then if you look at the swedge, it's also a very similar angle to this line on the handle. And then this swedge ends right there. See how it lines up just perfectly with this finger groove in the handle? It's just very well designed. This is, basically a piece of art. And look at the blade fit in the handle there. Lines line up just perfectly. Can't catch yourself with a tip or anything. It is perfectly centered. Just very well done. This is just a beautiful knife. So only issue that I could find that bothers me, and let's see if I can show it on camera. Yeah, so see the gap between the blade here at the pivot and the handle here, and then the gap on this side. So this is the lock side of the handle, and this gap is wider than this side, which is the show side of the handle right there. I don't know if it's coming through or not. So, but see, it's a little bit tighter on this side than it is on this side. But the blade centering is still perfect. So once I take it apart, we'll take a look at it, and I'll show you exactly how it's designed. I think this is a design thing. I don't think this is an error. I think this is just how this knife is made, and I'm guessing that they are all this way, because if it was off up here, there's no way it'd be able to be centered down here. And I think the way that he has the lock set up and everything, he just has to have this blade pushed off just a touch at the top. But on a knife at this price point, this bothers me. So, but let's take it apart, figure out how it works. All right, got this bad boy apart, and I realized I forgot to do my amazing cinematography trick at the end of that last one, but sorry about that. Anyways, here we have the show side liner, and I did want to point out the titanium scales are milled, but they're milled out, but they're also, the pattern is carried out on the inside, which is gorgeous and not something that they actually needed to do. Most people would never see that, but just a very nice attention to detail. So all the connectors on this are made by Tie Connector, I believe. Holt Bladeworks said they use Tie Connector, which is a titanium, screw manufacturing company out of Montana, and they're known for having very high quality parts. You can look up their website and look up some of these different things, but the screws at the backspacer are T8s, so no little tiny piddly T6s on this. They're T8s. The pivot is a T10, and notice that the liner lock is carried out and attached, fitted into the milled out part of the scale, fitted very well. But it also, instead of just being screwed on a couple times here, it actually goes all the way across and then is used in the pivot. So, and this, let me hold the bearing so I don't lose it. This pivot here, this screw does come out, but the actual pivot is, I think it's pressed in, or at least it's attached very solidly to this liner lock mechanism. So there's really no reason to pull this screw when you're taking this apart, because it's fitted in there and it's not moving at all. So it has stainless ball bearings instead of ceramic. At this price point, I'd rather see ceramic, but in use, really probably makes no difference whatsoever. This here is their adjustable detent system, and they do send, they do send a little hex key for that. It's an itty bitty little hex key that operates that. I did not mess with it, as it came perfectly tuned from them, and I don't want to mess it up, because this is, like I said, one of the best actions I've ever felt. Instead of using a ceramic ball pressed in, they actually have a piece milled out for the detent, and it moves very smoothly, and I assume that's probably why their action is just so amazing. But also note, something unique about this knife is that the stop pin is not in the handles. Most knives, like the Norseman and most high-end knives that have a hidden stop pin, the stop pin is in the handle. Majority of knives don't even have a hidden stop pin. See, like on this crux here, you can see the stop pin right there that the blade hits. So this one is actually pressed into the blade, and Holt says that this creates a stronger blade right here. Having this milled out as a channel for the stop pin can possibly create some weaker areas, especially during heat treat, or at least that's their argument. So I do think that's a very cool design element, having the pin pressed into the blade, and then having the actual stop pin path be milled inside the handle. I think that's just kind of neat, and I'd never seen that before. It's definitely a new thing, and very cool. Also, note that the pins for the handle that go through back here on this back there through the titanium, they don't actually thread into the titanium spacer. There's actually little barrels here that they thread into. What that means is that if you ever strip one or screw it up, you don't have to replace the titanium spacer, or worse, they don't thread into the scales, replace the scales. So if they get messed up, they're very easy to replace and get out of there. So I think that's it on the teardown, but just beautiful attention to detail, very nice CNC machine work. You can see how, as I showed earlier, the little tabs are carried through and line up perfectly with the back spacer. Milled on the inside. Liner lock is fitted in there perfectly. Just very well done. All right, final conclusions on the Holt Bladeworks Haptic. So I did end up sending this back, so I'm editing this video and adding this in. So basically, turns out, so I don't know if it'll show up perfect, but now this gap here from this side to this side is perfect. So I'm trying to get the light to shine through it, so you can see that it's just lined up perfectly now. So it's not off at all. So I'll go over that a little bit more, but basically I emailed their support and didn't hear back for a while, so I started filming the video, and then right after I got my review out there, Angie Holt got back to me and said that she thinks that sometimes they get the blade backs from Peter's Heat Treat, and sometimes they have a slight warp to them. But normally, you can almost always see that right here at the tip. It would be off. So it wouldn't line up perfectly centered. She said maybe it had warped just a tiny bit right up here at this corner point, was off just a touch this way, and that's what I was seeing. So I didn't think that would have been possible, because I figured that would have thrown off the bearing cutouts where the bearing rides, and that would in turn have thrown off the centering. But apparently the bearings could still be, the bearing surfaces could be perfectly flat, and this corner still have moved just a touch. And I mean, it was super minuscule, but it was enough to bother me on a, so I guess I can see how they missed it. They shouldn't have missed it, but I can see how they missed it. But they took it back. I sent it back to them and got it back, and now it's perfect. So problem solved. They replaced the blade. The blade was warped, and bada bing, bada boom, got it back, and now it's perfect. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but let's go into some final conclusions. Cost and availability. So this specific model was $850 plus shipping and tax, and then also plus I ended up sending it back to them for 20 or 30 bucks shipping, because I insured it on the way back since it's an expensive knife. And then they covered the cost to mail it back to me from them, and they did overnight it, which was very nice. So I don't know what they paid in shipping to get it back to me overnight, but yeah. They do it through a lottery system. So at set times they'll open up a link on their website, and they'll say, on such and such a date from 2 to 3 p.m. Central Time, we're going to open this up, and you come back at that time, then there'll be a link there. You click the link and you put your email in, and then everyone that clicks the link at that time, puts their email in, gets put in the lottery. Once the time closes, they do a lottery, poll some people that lucky winners, and then send them an email, and you get it pretty quickly, like within an hour of their time allotment closing. But they send the email, and it gives you a link and a time and like a password. And at the allotted time, it was like 2 or 3 hours after, you can click that link, and I was on, right at the time, and clicked into the link right as soon as it opens, and you go in, enter your password, and I think there were like 10 knives in there, and then it's first person to buy one gets them, and I assume they only sent out 10 links, so if you're late to the party, you'll end up being, not having a choice in the knives. But they're bare bones ones with a stonewash blade like this, but just plain titanium, unanodized titanium handle is $800. And then to add some color, this is 25 volt anodization, and I love blue handles or blue accents in the handles. So I mean, as soon as I saw this one, this is the one I wanted. But adding just that adds $50, so this was $850. I think adding some anodization to the hardware adds like another $50 or so, maybe $25. And then the one that really ups it is they do a mirror polish or semi-mirror polish on their blades, which I don't like, but some people really like, collectors especially like. That ups the price pretty significantly, at least by $100 or a couple $100 if I remember right. But for me, I like a stonewash blade. I like stonewash finishes. I don't do safe queens. All my knives get carried and used. And yeah, so I like a stonewash finish. Although this one has not been carried very much because it's been kind of going back and forth. So, yeah, let's get into some likes and dislikes. So, likes, this is absolutely a piece of art. I mean, this is just gorgeous. This is probably the most beautiful knife. It's certainly the most beautiful knife I've ever actually held in real life. So the lines match up. I've talked about it earlier, but the lines match up so beautifully. It's just so well done. It's just gorgeous. It literally, it's like a piece of art that I want to hang on my wall. It's just so pretty. The action is the best action I think I've ever felt in a knife. And the more I mess with it, the more I realize I think the action is better than the Norseman. And with this blade being this light, it just makes it unreal that the action is so good. I will say that it did come back after the blade was replaced with a little bit stronger detent pressure. So I think when they replaced the blade in it, they didn't adjust the detents at all. And then since this one was over a tiny bit initially, now that it's straight up, the detent's a little stiffer. So I did notice that the detent is tighter. I did not take this apart since I got it back. I am going to probably sell this one. I'll talk about that more in a bit. But I figured since I'm going to sell it, I'm not going to sharpen it, so there's still a factory edge. And then I'm not going to take it apart from the factory now. So, yeah. But yeah, likes. I love this blade shape. I love the overall look. I love the design. This blade shape is awesome. I love the stone wash. I love the color. This is just an amazing knife. So, dislikes. So, I have 3. So, one is just super minor. I wish that they had ceramic bearings instead of stainless steel. In reality, that's not going to matter. A knife like this is not going to be getting wet anyways, so you're not going to have to worry about rust issues probably. I mean, most people that would buy this knife aren't even going to carry it, but yeah. But yeah, either way, I'd still rather see ceramic, especially, $900-ish knife. The other thing, and the reason I'm actually selling it, is the handle size. I talked about it before, but for me, I do have very large hands, so most people probably won't be an issue, but for me, this is just a little too short. So I can get 4 fingers on it if I really crunch up. So, but just if I'm relaxing and grabbing, this pinky feels like it's floating. So it's like the tip just kind of, the corner that just barely grabs, and it feels like it's a 3-finger knife, and when I hold it in my hand, it feels a little off. So if you like a small Sabenza, I mean, this is about the same size as a small Sabenza. If that's the perfect size knife for you, then this knife will be the perfect size for you. I am more of a large Sabenza fan. I like 3.5-inch blade, 4.5-inch handle. And this one is 3.25, and I think 4.25 roughly. So I can handle the blade size, and I could probably handle this handle size if it didn't taper away right there. If this was extended out and then cut back in, it would fit me fine, and I'd keep it. So honestly, I really did consider keeping this for a while just because this action is so amazing. But for me, a knife this expensive, I know I'm kind of weird. A lot of people, a knife this expensive, they would keep it in their safe and just take it out and look at it every once in a while. For me, a knife this expensive is a waste of money if I'm not carrying it. And since the handle's a little small for me, I would not carry this. I haven't carried it. And having that much money wrapped up in a knife that I don't carry just bothers me and doesn't make sense for my particular usage. So nothing against people that buy knives and keep them as basically art and appreciate them for that in that way. That's fine. I have nothing against that. That's just not me. So that's why I will end up selling this one. And then the final thing is just the quality control issue. I'm sure this is a one-off. I've never heard of this happening with Holt Bladeworks. I mean, they're good people. I talked to Angie via email multiple times getting this resolved. But it just, at this price point, it shouldn't have left. It was very minor. I can see how they missed it. And, I mean, a lot of people would have gotten it and not even noticed it. I'm just anal, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they would have noticed it too. I don't know. But I ended up buying this on February 13th is when I actually won it, I believe. And then with the whole process of sending it to him, getting it back, I ended up getting it back March 16th. So I just fairly recently got it back. So from when I bought it to it getting fixed and getting back the knife that I should have gotten in the first place took over a month. So that's, that it's, I mean, like I said, I think Angie did great. They did a good job getting it. Email communication, there's once or twice where it's like a week between hearing from them via email. So that was a little disappointing, but I understand they have full-time jobs. This is kind of, they're more hobbyist blade makers doing this in the evenings and the weekends type thing. But still, I did not have a great customer experience. So they did overnight it back to me, which it was very cool. But I still had to pay shipping there, and I insured it, so it's still $30 additional in shipping. And then they paid the return shipping. So I don't know how it could have, if it would have been handled a little faster and maybe they would have covered my return shipping, that'd have been nice. Or maybe if they would have thrown a bunch of extra stickers in there or something, I'd have been like, oh, cool, that's nice. But I just got it back the way it was, but it was fixed and they took care of it. So I don't know. It was just a bad customer experience. And I think, that happens when you make enough knives. Eventually, big companies are, I don't know how many, this is 365. So 365 knives. And I'm guessing I'm probably the first one that's had this happen. So accidents happen, things happen, but it was still not the greatest experience ever for me. That being said, if this handle was a quarter inch longer, I'd still be keeping this knife because it's an amazing knife. Yeah, so my overall thoughts on it: amazing knife. Handle's a tiny bit too short. That's why I'm gonna have to flip it and use the money that I put into it to buy another knife. But who's this knife for? I think anyone looking for just a beautiful piece of art that they can appreciate would enjoy this knife. Any action snobs, or pretty much anyone that likes a flipper. If you haven't handled a high-end flipper before, like I said, I think I said earlier, but this will just blow your mind. Like, the action on this is the best I've ever felt. The closing action is unreal for a blade this light and small. It's just awesome. But yeah, that detent is a little stiffer, so I'll let whoever ends up buying it take it apart and adjust that detent. It is adjustable, super easy. I just didn't want to take it apart again since I already did it once. And they put it back together at the factory now. So, but yeah, if you don't mind smaller knives, if a small Sebenza is the perfect size for you, then I think this will fit your needs fine. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful to you, and I'll see you on the next one.